End of Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 of the best Christmas pageant ever. But when my brother Charlie was in with the little kids, his teacher thought up something different to do. She had everybody write down on a piece of paper what they liked best about Sunday school, or draw a picture of what they liked best. And when we all got in the church, she stood up in front of the congregation and said, "Today, some of our youngest boys and girls are going to tell you what Sunday school means to them. Betsy, what do you have on your paper?" Betsy Cathcart stood up and said, "What I like best about Sunday school is the good feeling I get when I go there." I don't think she wrote that down at all, but it sounded terrific, of course. One kid said he liked hearing all the Bible stories. Another kid said, "I like learning songs about Jesus." 8 or 9 little kids stood up and said what they liked. And it was always something good about Jesus or God or cheerful friends or the nice teacher. Finally, the teacher said, "I think we have time for one more. Charlie, what can you tell me about Sunday school?" My little brother Charlie stood up, and he didn't even have to look at the piece of paper. "What I like best about Sunday school," he said, "is that there aren't any herdmans here." Well, the teacher should have stuck with "Jesus loves me," because everybody forgot all the nice churchy things the other kids said and just remembered what Charlie said about the herdmans. When we went to pick him up after church, his teacher told us, "I'm sure there are many things that Charlie likes about Sunday school. Maybe he will tell you what some of them are." She smiled at all of us, but you could tell that she was really mad. On the way home, I asked Charlie, "What are some of the other things you like that she was talking about?" He shrugged. "I like all the other stuff. She said to write down what I like best, and what I like best is no herdmans." "Not a very Christian sentiment," my father said. "Maybe not, but it's a very practical one," Mother told him. Last year, Charlie had spent the whole second grade class being black and blue because he had to sit next to Leroy Herdman. In the end, it was Charlie's fault the Herdman showed up in church. For 3 days in a row, Leroy Herdman stole the dessert from Charlie's lunchbox, and finally Charlie just gave up trying to do anything about it. "Oh, go on and take it," he said. "I don't care. I get all the dessert I want in Sunday school." Leroy wanted to know more about that. "What kind of dessert?" he said. "Chocolate cake," Charlie told him, "and we get candy bars and cookies and Kool-Aid. We get refreshments all the time, all we want." "You're a liar," Leroy said. Leroy was right. We got jelly beans at Easter and punch and cookies on Children's Day, and that was it. "We get ice cream, too," Charlie went on, "and donuts and popcorn balls." "Who gives it to you?" Leroy wanted to know. "The minister," Charlie said. He didn't know what else to say. Of course, that was the wrong thing to tell herdmans if you wanted them to stay away. And sure enough, the very next Sunday, there they were, slouching into Sunday school, eyes peeled for the refreshments. "Where do you get the cake?" Ralph asked the Sunday school superintendent. And Mr. Grady said, "Well, son, I don't know about any cake, but they're collecting food packages out in the kitchen." What he meant was the canned stuff we brought in every year at Thanksgiving presents for the orphan home. It was just our bad luck that the herdmans picked that Sunday to come, because when they saw the cans of spaghetti and beans and grape drink and peanut butter, they figured there might be some truth to what Charlie had said about refreshments. So they stayed. They didn't sing hymns or say any prayers, but they did make a little money because I saw Imogene snake a handful of coins out of the collection basket when it went past her. At the end of the morning, Mr. Grady came to every class and made an announcement. "We'll be starting rehearsals soon for our Christmas pageant," he said. "And next week, after the service, we'll all gather in the back of the church to decide who will play the main roles. But of course, we want every boy and girl in our Sunday school to take part in the pageant, so be sure your parents know that you'll be staying a little later next Sunday." Mr. Grady made the same speech every year, so he didn't get any wild applause. Besides, as I said, we all knew what parts we were going to play anyway. Alex Wendelkin must have been a little bit worried, though, because she turned around to me with a sticky smile on her face and said, "I hope you're going to be in the angel choir again. You're so good in the angel choir." But what she meant was, "I hope you don't get to be Mary just because your mother's running the pageant." She didn't have to worry. I didn't want to be Mary. I didn't want to be in the angel choir either, but everybody had to be something. All of a sudden, Imogene Herdman dug me in the ribs with her elbows. She had the sharpest elbows of anybody I ever knew. "What's the pageant?" she said. "It's a play," I said, and for the first time that day, except when she saw the collection basket, Imogene looked interested. All the Herdmans are big moviegoers, though they never pay their own way. One or two of them start a fight at the box office of the theater while the others slip in. They get their popcorn the same way, and then they spread out all over the place so the manager can never find them, all before the picture's over. What's the play about? Imogene asked. It's about Jesus, I said. Everything here is, she muttered. So I figured Imogene didn't care much about the Christmas pageant, but I was wrong. Chapter 3. Mrs. Armstrong, who was still trying to run things from her hospital bed, said that the same people always got the main parts. But it's important to give everybody a chance, she told Mother over the telephone. Let me tell you what to do. Mother sighed and turned off the heat under the pork chops. All right, Helen, she said. Mrs. Armstrong called Mother at least every other day, and she called at supper time. Don't let me interrupt your supper, she always said, and then went right ahead and did it anyway, while my father paced up and down the hall, saying things under his breath about Mrs. Armstrong. Here's what to do, Mrs. Armstrong said. I get them all together, I tell them about the rehearsals and that they must be on time and pay close attention. Then I tell them the main parts are Mary and Joseph and the wise men and the angel of the Lord. And then I always remind them that there are no small parts, only small actors. Do they understand what that means? Mother asked. Oh, yes, Mrs. Armstrong said. Later, Mother asked me if I knew what that meant about small parts and small actors. I don't really know. None of us did. It was just something Mrs. Armstrong always said. I guess it means the short kids have to be in the front row of the angel choir, or else nobody can see them. I thought so, Mother said. It doesn't mean that at all. It really means that every single person in the pageant is just as important as every other person. That the littlest baby angel is just as important as Mary. Go and tell that to Alice Winkledon, I said, and Mother told me not to be so fresh. She didn't get very mad, though, because she knew I was right. You could have a Christmas pageant without any baby angels, but you couldn't have one without Mary. Mrs. Armstrong knew it, too. I always start with Mary, she told Mother over the telephone. I tell them that we must choose our Mary carefully, because Mary was the mother of Jesus. I know that, Mother said, wanting to get off the telephone and cook the pork chops. Yes, I tell them that our Mary should be a cheerful, happy little girl who was unselfish and kind to others. Then I tell them about Joseph, that he was God's choice to be Jesus' father, and our Joseph ought to be a little boy. She went on and got as far as the second wise man when Mother said, Helen, I have to go now. There's somebody at the door. Actually, there was somebody at the door. It was my father standing on the porch in his coat and hat, leaning on the doorbell. When Mother let him in, he took off his hat and bowed to her. Lady, can you give me some supper? I haven't had a square meal in 3 days. Oh, for goodness sake, Mother said. Come on in. What will the neighbors think to see you standing out there ringing your own doorbell? And why didn't you ring the doorbell 10 minutes ago? Mrs. Armstrong called Mother 2 more times that week to tell her that people could hem up costumes but couldn't cut them, and to tell her not to let the angel choir wear any lipstick, and by Sunday Mother was already sick of the whole thing. After church, we all filed into the back 7 pews, along with 2 or 3 Sunday school teachers who were supposed to keep everybody quiet. It was a terrible time to try to keep everybody quiet. All the little kids were tired, and all the big kids were hungry, and all the mothers wanted to go home and cook dinner, and all the fathers wanted to go home and watch the football game on TV. Now this isn't going to take very long, Mother told us. My father had said it better not take very long because he wanted to watch the football game too. He also wanted to eat. He said he hadn't had a decent meal all week. First, I'm going to tell you about the rehearsals, Mother said. We'll have our rehearsals on Wednesday at 6:30. We're only going to have 5 rehearsals, so you must all try to be present at every one. What if we get sick? Asked the little kid in the front pew. You won't get sick, Mother told him, which was exactly what she told Charlie that morning when Charlie said that he didn't want to be a shepherd and he would be sick to his stomach if she made him be one. Now you little children in the cradle room in the primary class will be our angels, Mother said. You'll like it, won't you? They all said yes. What else could they say? The older boys and girls will be the shepherds and guests at the inn and members of the choir. Mother was really zipping along, and I thought how mad Mrs. Armstrong would be about all the things she was leaving out. And we need a Mary and Joseph, the 3 wise men, and the angel of the Lord. They aren't hard parts, but they're very important parts, so those people must absolutely come to every rehearsal. What if they get sick? It was the same little kid. It made you wonder what kind of little kid he was to be so interested in sickness. They won't get sick either, Mother said, looking a little cross. Now we all know what kind of person Mary was. She was quiet and gentle and kind, and the little girl who plays Mary should try to be that kind of person.